Dan and Amy. So fresh off her rather bizarre performance in that Commander-in-Chief forum on Wednesday evening where she...
Well, she seemed a little edgy and then a little squirrely as well.
She seemed a little ignorant, like when she talked about never putting troops on the ground in Iraq and Syria, which is news to the troops that are on the ground in Iraq and Syria at present.
Her BFF, Andrea Mitchell from NBC News, clarified that last night. Saying that she made a mistake and that she knows that there's troops and 6,000 to 7,000 on the ground. She knows that.
Well, I'm glad Andrea Mitchell is there to do the cleanup work. But fresh off that performance, she sat down with Israeli Channel 2 television, and she had this to say about where ISIS is coming down in this election, which is important. I mean, this is a real value-added information she has.
Matt Olson, the former director of our National Counterterrorism Center, makes this point. Mm-hmm. I found it even surprising how clear and compelling the case was, where he quoted ISIS spokespeople rooting for Donald Trump's victory because Trump has made Islam and Muslims part of his campaign. And basically, Matt Olson argues that the jihadists see this as a great gift. They are saying, oh, please, Allah, make Trump president of America.
Oh, boy.
I saw that, too. And she went with her hands like, please, Allah, and looked up to the sky. Stop it.
Well, two things. I mean, if you can't believe an ISIS spokesman, who can you believe?
I know.
Number one. Number two, she does a heck of an impersonation of an ISIS spokesman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe.
Was it the hand gesture or the look up toward the ceiling?
I think it was
There's a combination of both.
Please, Allah.
Yeah.
And then she took out her prayer rug. Mike Rogers joins us now to assess the veracity of that charge. Mike Rogers, of course, former Michigan congressman, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, former FBI agent, now the host of CNN's Declassified. Seems like his career, there was an apex when he worked for the FBI, then it declined as a member of Congress. Now I don't know where it is again. Now. I mean, being on CNN. Mike Rogers, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
So hurtful. So hurtful. You sound like my dad. My dad used to say, I got 5 boys, 4 turned out really good, and I got 1 in Congress.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. You're welcome to my family dinner, apparently.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The additional help.
Appreciate it. So what about that? I mean, that's some breaking news that ISIS is praying to Allah to deliver the Oval Office to Trump.
I mean, this thing just gets crazier by the minute. And if you heard her, which, by the way, is just on the face of it ludicrous, and worse than that, it seems desperate to me.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Clinton campaign, that they would even say that.
And this okay, go on.
If you look at the classification problem in the answering of the questions, she contradicted herself several times. I mean, they are a mess. That campaign's a mess. I worry that this is. I don't worry. I mean, this might be that first sign that they're imploding when you start saying outrageous things like the terrorist country who's killed Americans is really supporting my opponent. That sounds like something that crazy candidate who gets about 3% says. It doesn't sound like a mainstream presidential candidate.
Well, as a former FBI agent, when you hear that, the FBI requested that the Clinton campaign or her lawyers turn over 13 devices and that 2 were smashed, 1 with a hammer, I mean, how does that make you feel that she was able to, escape prosecution?
Well, in the FBI, we would call a smashed piece of evidence as it was turned in a clue.
Yes. That is, slow down. Don't use these technical jargon with us.
Yeah, exactly. It is really this whole thing is outrageous. They found and I was very, very disappointed in the FBI. And I knew the director, and I worked with the director when I was chairman, and had utmost respect for him. I don't know if they felt they had to play some political game or not, but you do not ever want your FBI director playing politics. I don't care if they're going after a Republican, a Democrat, a Green Party. It should never matter. The law should matter. When she herself, and this is what drove me crazy about that as an FBI guy, she was very clear. A lawyer wrote this line for her. There was no header on any document that said classified. No header. If you notice, she repeated it several times. Well, in one email she sent to her staff, she asked them to remove the header and send in an unclassified manner. So technically she's right. There was no header, but she clearly knew, and they knew that they were talking in classified information on an unsecured server. And we find out through that investigation that she was having conversations on her personal BlackBerry to her server overseas. And I have to tell you, there is no less secure form of communications than when you take your device overseas anywhere. All of that is likely going to get intercepted, especially if you're the Secretary of State of the United States. Well, it is mind-boggling that they have just said, well, there's nothing to see here, move along.
And the no header story that she came up with on Wednesday evening is different than what she told the FBI when she was interviewed. It's different than what she's been saying for most of the last year. I mean, it's just kind of trying out new apocryphal lines to explain this away, to try and kind of turn the issue turn the campaign to other issues. And it doesn't seem to be working terribly well. Yesterday, Julian Assange from WikiLeaks said he has up to 100,000 pages of Clinton documents still to come between now and November 8th, the November 8th election. Now, it's important to point out, as we did yesterday, this is not casting Julian Assange in some heroic light. He's no hero. He's no friend of the United States. But what is coming out, regardless of what you think of Assange, continues to be that much more troubling. And that's compounded by Congressman Steve Russell, Republican from Oklahoma, who said that if people saw the information that he has seen that has not been released to the public regarding Clinton's mishandling of classified information, the American public would be, quote, absolutely appalled. So it doesn't seem like this is going away, and nor should it.
Well, and it should not go away. This gets to both your judgment and character to be commander-in-chief. I thought when that serviceman got up and asked the question, and the reason he did that, there's this very kind of an uneasy feeling across that community of people who deal with classified information that there now are different standards. If I violate a much lower threshold standard, I probably will go to jail, lose my job, lose my clearance. And if you're at Hillary Clinton's level, you might just get to be president of the whole thing. And that's dangerous because we have these problems all the time. Individuals, Snowden to me is a great example. He decided on his own that he thought something bad was happening. Come to find out, he was wrong about that. That was all approved and legal, and even the review committee found it. But he decided, all on his own, that he knew better than everyone else, and then took that information to the loving arms of an FSB agent in Moscow that hurt national security. You can't have these people making up their minds like that. And what happens when you set this standard is you're telling all those people, well, maybe it's not such a big deal that you talk about classified sensitive programs and information. Well, it is. The military knows it is, and that's why people are so nervous. And it's not just her. Imagine the people she's bringing in. You'll bring thousands of people into that organization when you become president. I think there's some 6,000 appointments total. If those people have been used to violating that standard, you are going to have some real problems in administering your government and keeping anything from our adversaries.
Yeah, and I mean, just imagine if Hillary Clinton becomes president, all the political paybacks and people that donated to the Clinton Foundation will become ambassadors and things like that. But speaking of Russia, Donald Trump, I just wanted to get your opinion about this kind of bromance and these positive, kind words for Vladimir Putin that came out of Donald Trump's mouth repeatedly in the last few days.
Yeah, listen, I think one in-depth, the intelligence briefings that presidential candidates get, listen, candidly are not that deep. And you get one good briefing about Russia, what Russia's doing. Remember, this isn't a mistake that hasn't been made before. George Bush thought he had a connection with Putin. Do you remember that? He looked into his eyes and saw his soul. And it was a mistake. And Barack Obama did the same thing. Actually, Hillary Clinton with the whole reset. Remember the whole reset shenanigans they did with the big red button, and what a mistake that was. And I think that every president probably almost should go in thinking, I'm the one that can solve this problem. I think he needs to understand fully what the Russians are up to today. he will get that as president, and I think that will correct course pretty quickly. As a guy that was in business, normally if you know that the four contractors you've been working with have been stealing money from you, won't take you long to figure that out. I think you're going to look at the same kind of process that goes on here. So, again, the last few presidents all thought that they could do it. And Ronald Reagan, by the way, the same thing, and he actually did make some progress. They all believe that they can go and be the person that changes, a guy like Putin's mind. And we'll find out. I doubt it. As the guy that saw all of the information of what the Russians are up to, I doubt it. But, hey, it's always worth a shot. And then let's get back to the business of putting him back in the box.
Speaking of autocrats, I wanted to get your threat assessment of the latest missile test in North Korea. And the threat that North Korea poses, is it a regional threat or is it a global threat?
Well, currently it's a regional threat. They claim that they have the capability by missile to strike the western United States. I am suspect that they have the missile that could carry a nuclear weapon and reach the western coast of the United States. That said, however, you can't just go on science alone. You have to go on what your intent is. And so he has said that he would reach out and strike the United States. He needs to. He's very, very verbose. He's very aggressive in his speech. You have to start worrying about it. And just watching this happen and having the administration just kind of roll over and watch these, I think they're up to 5 nuclear tests, multiple long-range missile ICBM-type tests that you need an ICBM to launch a nuclear missile. All of that is very, very concerning. And the other problem is he's just so unstable. He is, about every 2 weeks, they haul somebody out from his administration and shoot him.
Yeah. No.
Matter of fact, he had his brother shot with an anti-aircraft weapon, which is a pretty brutal way to go, and it was apparently pretty public for North Korea to show that he was in charge.
We're going to have
all of that means danger.
We're going to have to scramble Dennis Rodman for some shuttle diplomacy. All right, he is Mike Rogers, former U.S. Army officer, former FBI agent, former Michigan congressman and House Intelligence Committee chairman, and now the host of CNN's Declassified. Mike, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.